host of the Gridiron.
So let's talk about something on the good side here, shall we? Now, John Madden didn't say this. He said, if you ever listen to the 1986 divisional round playoff game, the Giants against the 49ers. Giants won 49-3. John Madden said it multiple times, said at least twice. And let's not forget, right? In 1986, the Giants and 49ers in a playoff game. Jerry Rice was on the field. Joe Montana was on the field, right? Ronnie Lott was on the field. Some guy by the name of Lawrence Taylor was on the field. Harry Carson was on the field, right? But some guy, who's not in the Hall of Fame, who was on the field, was said by Mr. Madden at least two times, at least twice. I think Carl Banks is the best player on the field, and he was. He was. They could not run the ball at him. That man set an edge. Let me tell you what. You come on the out. You ran his way. You were not getting to the outside. It was not happening. Unlike today's, I don't know what the heck is. I don't even know. The crap they run. I don't setting edges and stuff like that. I don't know. Some of that almost like a lost art. But you couldn't get around him. And then it followed up, right, in the Super Bowl. He was the best player on the field in the Super Bowl, except for Phil Simms. The Super Bowl MVP with his passing performance. But other than that, Carl Banks was the best player on the field that day, not question. Now, Banks doesn't have the gaudy numbers like the All-Pros, right, the Pro Bowls and all that stuff. But somehow, 1987, his only Pro Bowl and his only All-Pro. That was it, 1987. But somehow, he made the All-Decade team, 1980s All-Decade team. Unfortunately, he's one of those guys, and there's tons of guys that you can go through, right, who are really good players and this, that, and the other thing, who just don't quite have the All-Pros or those gaudy Pro Bowl numbers and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons that's keeping him out of the Hall of Fame, right? He's got 2 Super Bowl rings and everything like that. And they said Super Bowl 21, he was the best player on the field except for Phil Simms. But, some NFL greats recall dominant run defense of the Giants linebacker Carl Banks. And he was. Now, I'll tell you what, it's kind of funny. It is kind of funny. You listen to some of these guys. And they pay tribute to him. And they're even talking, I'll talk, there we go. Hold on. When recalling the great defense of the Giants, New York Giants back in the Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick era, the first name that rolls off the tongue is their legendary linebacker, Lawrence Taylor. Other players who get recognition are Hall of Fame linebacker Harry Carson and dominating defensive end Leonard Marshall. But Carl Banks, he was good too. Correction, Banks was better than good. The low-key Banks, the 3rd overall selection by the Giants in the 1984 NFL Draft, was one of the best outside linebackers of his era. To this day, many NFL historians and former players recount just how good Banks was in Taylor's shadow. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Baldy once told me that Banks was one of the best outside linebackers against the run he played against, and that team's game plan to run away from him. Yes, even with Lawrence Taylor on the other side. The Baldy, obviously referred to here, is Brian Baldinger, former offensive lineman who played for the Cowboys, the Colts, and the Bills and the Eagles. in the 80s and the early 90s. That's when Banks played. And remember, that's right, we played with the Cowboys and he played the Eagles. He played against Banks twice a year. Baldinger, now an NFL Network analyst, is well respected for his analysis and as a contemporary of his can confidently say his first-hand accounts of Banks' play are dead on. Banks, now a game day radio voice during Giants games, along with Bob Papa, has garnered many an accolade over the years. Papa tweeted out that the great Hall of Fame offensive tackle Anthony Munoz. Now, Anthony Munoz, let me tell you what, special. Anthony Munoz once told him that Banks told me the same thing about Banks that Baldinger had claimed regarding teams running away from Banks. Banks is a member of the Giants Ring of Honor and was named the NFL's All-Decade Team of the 80s. He was an All-Pro selection in 87, Pro Bowl and All-Pro 87. That was it. No other All-Pros, no nothing. But he was on the All-Decades team now. Banks was a legend in college at Michigan State, where he was a three-time All-Big Ten selection. He was inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame in 2011 and the MSU Athletic Hall of Fame in 2012. Banks was a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2020, but didn't make it. They said he doesn't have quite the gaudy numbers. The best pair of outside linebackers in the NFL in the 80s was Taylor and Banks. They both made the Pro Bowl and named All-Pro in 87. Banks, there's a right here. There's a video showing. I don't know if we're going to play or not. Showing Banks stuffed Herschel to tackle Dorsett for a loss, and 3 plays later, LT snagged a pick out of the nowhere. Yep. That's it. It shows you on the play that it's just incredible that the Cowboys at the one time had Herschel Walker and Tony Dorsett in the backfield. Just crazy, right? But it just goes to show you that on the one play, Banks came crashing in. He took on. He went down low. Herschel went kind of high. Banks went low on Herschel and took Herschel off his feet. And then he kind of went in and was able to. And he's far enough into the backfield, but Tony Dorsett wound up tripping over him and went down for a tackle. So, Banks was really good. Now, one of the things is a lot of times, Banks didn't so much get a lot of, he wasn't as good as a pass rusher as Lawrence Taylor was. He didn't get anywhere near the gaudy numbers at LT because Banks was in coverage a lot, right? If you have a chance, if you got the Russian 3 defensive linemen, right, and Lawrence Taylor, that's why you didn't have to blitz a lot because you got Lawrence Taylor. You're blitzing Lawrence Taylor in his prime. It's like what Joe Theismann said. It's like if you got 3 guys rushing and Lawrence Taylor, that's like sending 5 guys. Really it is, right? So there was no need to blitz other guys. So a lot of times, you send in Lawrence Taylor, right? So a lot of times Carl Banks was dropped in coverage, right? So he didn't have a lot of those gaudy sack numbers on it, But I'll tell you what, as far as setting the edge and all that stuff, it was just, he was really, really good. They said, his numbers weren't that gaudy, super spectacular as other guys and all, but boy, he was really, really good. He was really, really good. And it's really nice to hear some of the guys, some of the old time guys, really, they're talking about like Anthony Munoz. Who's one of the absolute best tackles, period, in the history of the NFL. Talking about, they they could have been, they were quite possibly talking about the 85 game because the Bengals played the Giants in 85. That was the game that Phil Simms threw for 513 yards, and the Giants, of course, still lost. The Giants had like over 500 yards of offense. The Bengals had like 200 yards of offense, and the Giants still lost 35 because I don't know if there's like, I can't remember if there was like a pick six one where they ran a kickoff back for a fumble. It was just everything went the Bengals' way. But Phil Simms had over 500 yards passing in that game, and the Giants still wound up losing 35-31. So that might have been the one game that Munoz was talking about when they were going up against Taylor and Banks, right? But they were talking about with Munoz, they were talking about maybe possibly not running at Banks' side and running maybe more toward Lawrence Taylor's side because Banks was maybe maybe a little superior at setting the edge or whatever than Taylor was. Maybe they were almost kind of thinking, well, maybe do we want to run at Banks or do we want to run at Taylor? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we want to run at Banks. Let's maybe try. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, right? Let's run away from Banks. Let's run at Taylor. There's also some of it too, is that if you don't run at Taylor, see, the thing is with Taylor, right, is it, it makes some sense there too. Because if you're running at Taylor, you know where he's at, and you're sending people there, and you're hitting him, try to slow him down, tire him out, whatever, wear him down, right, by running at him. If you're running at Banks, you're not blocking Taylor, right? And Taylor is going to be faster than almost anybody on the field. So he can come in the backfield and catch guys from behind and stuff like that. So it almost behooved the offense just to run at Taylor, right? Just to send bodies at him and just try to hit him and knock him down and tire him out, wear him down, right? So that's why maybe some teams ran away from Banks and tried to run at Taylor, just try to wear Taylor down. But I mean, also some of it too was just Banks was a lot better. Maybe not a lot better, but I'm saying Banks was a very good run defender. Very, very good run defender. So, but I mean, when you got Banks, you got Taylor, and you got Harry Carson as like linebackers. I mean, it's almost like pick your poison. Do you want to run this way at Taylor? Do you want to run this way at Banks? Do you want to run up the middle at Harry Carson? Like, pick your poison, right? Good luck.